Shock in Alaska. The Trump-Putin talks collapsed, but it may be the end of the Putin's isolation and the start of pressure on Ukraine. Instead of taking a thought stance, Trump praised the Russian dictator and sent a clear signal. Now it's up to Zelensky. The message: Ukraine should start giving it to make peace with Russia. The world is stunned. It looks like the Kremlin's diplomatic blockade just ended and Washington might be turning up the heat on Kyiv. The vibe of a big deal is in the air, but what the price? I'm Zaroslava Kolesnikova, this is Ukraine Today. What really happened behind those closed doors in Alaska? Find out now. Summit shock. Trump and Putin talks for 3 hours, no deal, but price and plans for Moscow. The meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin lasted 3 tense hours behind closed doors. No official agreement was made, no ceasefire, no peace deal, but both leaders still called the summit productive and even historic. At the press conference, Putin spoke first, taking the lead and saying that Russia and the US have always been neighbors. Trump, instead of criticizing, praised Putin and hinted at a possible second meeting, this time in Moscow.
It is quite logical to meet here, because even though our countries are separated by oceans, in reality we are close neighbors. And when we finally met, as we gracefully stepped off the planes, I immediately said, "Good afternoon, my dear, esteemed neighbor. It is truly a profound pleasure to see you in such remarkably good health and indeed very much alive." And in my humble opinion, that truly sounds exceptionally neighborly and wonderfully warm, conveying a genuine sense of camaraderie and welcome.
He thanked Trump for suggesting the meeting in Alaska and pointed out what he called the historic ties between Alaska and Russia.
That a significant part of the shared history between Russia and the United States is connected to Alaska, including many positive events. To this day, Alaska preserves a vast cultural heritage from the era of Russian America, Orthodox churches, and more than 700 geographical names of Russian origin. During World War II, it was in Alaska that the legendary air route for delivering combat aircraft and other equipment under the Lend-Lease Agreement began. It was a dangerous, challenging route over vast icy expanses. But pilots and specialists from both countries did everything they could to bring victory closer. They took risks. They gave their lives for our shared victory. Just now, I was in the city of Magadan in Russia. There, a monument stands dedicated to Russian and American pilots.
Putin also said that Trump is personally trying to help solve the conflict in Ukraine, once again preparing the Kremlin's narrative about supposed threats to Russia's security.
I have repeatedly stated that, for Russia, the events in Ukraine are linked to fundamental threats to our national security. Moreover, we have always regarded and still regard the Ukrainian people, I have said this many times, as a brotherly people, no matter how strange that may sound under today's circumstances. We share the same roots, and everything that is happening is a tragedy and a deep pain for us. That is why our country is genuinely interested in putting an end to this. At the same time, we are convinced that for a Ukrainian settlement to be stable and long-lasting,
Putin as always spoke about brotherly nation, tragedy and pain, hinting that Ukraine and the EU should accept this storm and not stand in the way of his plan.
All the root causes of the crisis, which have been discussed repeatedly, must be eliminated, all of Russia's legitimate concerns must be addressed, and a fair balance in the sphere of security must be restored both in Europe and in the world as a whole. I agree with President Trump. He spoke about this today, that of course security must be ensured and we are ready to work on this. We hope that the understanding we have reached will help us move closer to that goal and open the way to peace in Ukraine. We expect that in Kyiv and in European capitals, all of this will be received constructively.
There is no agreement at this time, Trump said after Putin's speech. Still, the US president dropped plenty of hints.
Thank you all very much. They have done an outstanding job. In addition to this, there are also many prominent representatives of Russian business present here, and that is truly wonderful to see. We are looking forward to finishing all this and starting to work together.
He also said he would talk to NATO and Vladimir Zelensky to tell them about the results of the meeting.
Today, we managed to make significant progress. I have always said that I have an excellent relationship with President Putin. We have had many difficult and challenging meetings, and all of them have been significantly hampered by these constant and persistent talks about how, supposedly, the Russian Federation is actively interfering in American elections and so on and so forth. But we had to overcome all these significant difficulties, all these extensive discussions about the alleged Russian interference that was widely reported and debated.
Trump said the meeting with Putin was 10 out of 10, calling it a big step forward and hinting at the possible next meeting in Moscow.
So I immediately called some of my trusted colleagues and carefully told them exactly how our important meeting went. We had a truly very productive and successful meeting. We managed to reach agreements on many points. There are still a few points on which we have not yet agreed. Some of them are quite important. We were not able to reach a final agreement on those. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire delegation.
Trump said they couldn't agree on everything, but there was progress on many issues. Though what exactly they discussed is still unknown.
And President Putin, just like me, wants to put an end to all of this. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. President. I hope I might see you again soon. Thank you, Vladimir. Next time in Moscow. Huh. That's an interesting suggestion. But maybe so. We'll see. Thank you all very much.
At the joint press conference, reporters weren't allowed to ask any questions, and the planned lunch between the leaders was suddenly cancelled. After the meeting ended, the Kremlin released footage of Putin and Trump shaking hands backstage. Then the Russian president quickly left for the airport and flew back to Moscow.
That was very unusual, atypical. And I think we're all waiting for the report because the atmosphere in the room was... it didn't seem like everything was going smoothly. It seemed like Putin came in, dominated, immediately said what he wanted, took a photo with the president and left. Of course, that's only part of the picture we have right now. And undoubtedly, President Trump, as the host and president, wouldn't want, I think, to allow anything that would make him look weak. But we're looking forward to learning the backstory of this. I'll also note that we didn't see any grim expressions on the faces of Steve Betkov, Secretary Rubio, or other members of the U.S. delegation. And I think if there had been anything concerning, we would have noticed something. But just to describe the atmosphere in the room for you, what we're thinking about, what we need to know in order to put all the pieces together and fully understand what we've seen.
Meanwhile, Russia has already prepared documents to restart flights to the US, according to Russia's ambassador in Washington, Alexander Darychev. Moscow is clearly trying to use the symbolism of the summit, even without any real deal. But the main fact remains that there is no ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. Right now, the global media is focused on the one big question: did this summit help Putin clean his image? And why are the US once leading the sanctions, now shaking hands with a man wanted by an international criminal court? The Alaska meeting is over, but its true consequences are still to come. It would be better to make a deal. Now it's up to Zelensky. Trump pushes Zelensky to give up territory. After the high-stakes meeting with Putin in Alaska, US President Donald Trump gave a full interview to Fox News where he shared his thoughts on the talks and the next steps to end the war in Ukraine. Even though no official deal was made, Trump's instead.
Yes. At your press conference, you talked about many things you agree on, and perhaps one big issue you disagree on. Are you ready to make that public?
No, I'd rather not do that. I think if someone decides to make it public, they'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can make it happen. You know, it's not finished yet.
Trump strongly urged Ukraine to come to the negotiation table. The US president openly advised Ukraine to make a deal with Russia.
We need to make a deal. Yeah, look, Russia is a very big country, and they are great soldiers, and they have a great, but you know, they also have the best equipment. You know, they had our equipment, and I gave them javelins, if you remember, during my first term. In fact, it was a statement. I gave them javelins. Do you remember that?
Trump also spoke about the loss of lives and soldiers on both sides, saying the war has gone on too long and too many people have died.
Today we had a very good meeting, but we'll see. I mean, we need to make a deal. We agreed on many points. I want people to stop dying in Ukraine, and that's what's happening. We're losing 5, 6, 7,000 there. They are Russians, mostly Russians, and they are Ukrainian soldiers. There are people dying in cities and towns where they are trying to blow up missile factories and other facilities in some cities. I don't know if you know what's going on there, but a lot of people are dying there. And if we can end this war, that would be very good. I was very glad to hear him say, if I were president, this war would never have happened.
Trump didn't hide the fact that the main goal of the meeting was not reached. He said the key points had already been discussed with Putin, and now it's up to Kyiv to decide what happens next.
Narrator, not much. There are, 1 or 2 fairly significant points, but I think they can be achieved. Now, it really depends on President Zelensky to make it happen, and I would also say that European countries need to get a bit more involved, but it depends on President Zelensky.
Trump confidently said that both Zelensky and Putin want him to be at their meeting.
You said you want the meeting as soon as possible. Maybe with you, President Zelensky and President Putin. I don't know if I can trust the two of them alone together in a room. I think it would be better if you were there. Well, they both want me to be there. Was this discussed?
Yes, it was discussed. I mean, they both want me to be there, and I will be there. You have to see it. And it's a big day. I think in any case, it's a big day.
Trump is suggesting that Ukraine trade territory for peace with Putin. Even his allies are shocked.
When they analyze this from the outside, this is how they, and almost everyone universally, think it will end. There will be territorial exchanges, and there will be more Russian territory than there was before. And what Ukraine wants and desperately needs are our security measures, which will not be tied to NATO. If you were to look into your crystal ball, is that how it will end?
Well, I think these are the questions we've been discussing, and these are the questions on which we've actually mostly reached an agreement. I think we've agreed on a lot, and I can tell you that the meeting was very warm. He's a strong guy. He's very tough and all that. But the meeting was very warm between two very important countries, and it's very good when they get along. I think we're pretty close to an agreement. Now, look, Ukraine has to agree to this. Maybe they'll say no because Biden was handing out money like candy, and Europe gave them a lot of money. We gave $350 billion. Europe gave them much less, but still a lot, $100 billion.
Trump has essentially admitted that a territorial compromise between Russia and Ukraine is on the table, and that many key points have already been agreed on. He also said he won't impose new sanctions on Russia, claiming that his meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska went well. At the same time, Trump positioned himself as a mediator and hinted he might attend a future Zelensky-Putin meeting. His comments are not causing major debate in the West, as they should like pressure on Kyiv with a clear message: Ukraine should be ready to make concessions. That's all for today on Ukraine Today. Stay tuned, the next updates will be even louder. Like this post, drop your thoughts about Summit in the comments and share it. Let the world see how deals are made behind the back of those who fight. We are not stopping, we keep going. Stay strong, stay informed, and stay with Ukraine.